9-year-old girl mopping the floor with bruised bare feet recognizes her biological father as a millionaire. Before starting today's story, please adjust the volume on your device to a comfortable level so as not to affect your health and have the most comfortable moments with our characters. New York, December. The sky hung low, a dull grey blanket smothering the city's forgotten outskirts. Stephen Walker sat in his polished black Mercedes, eyes fixed on the navigation screen displaying a zoomed-in view of a crumbling urban neighborhood. "Mr. Walker, we're here," Charles, his driver, said gently, checking on him through the rearview mirror. Stephen didn't answer. He got out of the car, buttoned his sleek trench coat and took in the view. A stretch of neglected homes teetering on the edge of collapse. His eyes narrowed, reflecting a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Back at Harvard, Stephen had learned to keep business and emotion separate. That principle guided everything, and today was just business. An eviction notice, a mountain of files, a group of tenants clinging to fading walls. None of it would change the outcome. Charles' voice broke the silence. "Would you like me to wait here, sir?" Stephen waved him off. "No, I won't be long." He walked down a narrow lane where the ground was thick with slush and trash, each step sticky with decay. The air reeked of mold, sewage, and the bitter staleness of neglect. House number 17 appeared in front of him. The paint was peeling, the roof sagged, and the wooden door leaned inward like it was too tired to stand. Spray painted in red across the side were the words, "Do not leave." Stephen's lips tightened as he knocked hard. "Is anyone home?" No answer. He nudged the door open. The rusted hinges groaned. And then he saw her. Everything stopped. A small girl, maybe 9 years old, struggled on the floor, dragging a bucket of water with tiny hands. Her hair was a matted mess. Her skin ghostly pale, legs and arms covered in scrapes. Most painfully, she was barefoot on the freezing tiles. Her dress was little more than a collection of worn-out patches. With every step, she left faint prints in the dust. Stephen remained still, momentarily shaken. "Little girl, what are you doing here?" he asked sharply. She turned her face upward, eyes wide, startled. I'm cleaning. It's spilled." His jaw tightened. "This building is owned by Walker Group. Legally, no one should be occupying it without paperwork. Who's responsible for this property?" The girl backed away, still holding onto the bucket. "My mum, she's at work." Stephen stepped inside, his voice hard, his posture rigid. The room was nearly empty. Blankets strung on a clothesline, a few food wrappers and a blurred photo on the wall. A young woman smiled softly in it, cradling a baby. "How old are you?" he asked. "9, sir." 9. "Living here alone? No school? No guardian?" She looked down. "I still do school at home." Stephen glanced at the floor. No books, no pencils, no sign of lessons. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Lucinda." He turned to leave, but something made him pause. He looked back at her again. And that's when it hit him. The eyes, those dark, clear eyes. So familiar, they stopped him cold. "Lucinda, what's your last name?" She bit her lip, then whispered, trembling. "Lucinda?" "Mariah." Stephen's hands curled into fists. Mariah. The name hit him like a punch to the gut. Back in the car, Stephen sat wordless. Charles, keeping an eye on him through the rearview mirror, finally asked, "Sir, are you all right?" Stephen spoke quietly. "Clear my afternoon. I need time to myself." Charles didn't press. Inside Stephen's head, memories rolled in heavy like storm clouds. Mariah. A decade ago. The young woman with eyes clear and soft like an early spring morning. She had been a housemaid on the Walker estate. Back then, Stephen was in his early 30s, still climbing the ladder. He used to sneak her cookies from the kitchen, spend lazy afternoons reading beside her under the trees. She'd giggle at his nonsense, eyes shining. "I've always loved the name Lucinda," she once said, almost in a whisper. "If I ever have a little girl, that's what I'll call her." Stephen remembered smiling, certain they had all the time in the world. That was before his mother, Isabella, found out. "You will not get involved with that girl," she had snapped. "She's just using that baby to trap you." Stephen had argued. He'd stood his ground until she showed him the DNA test. "It's not your child," the doctor had said. Back then he had believed it, naively, weakly. He turned away from Mariah, pregnant and pleading. "I don't want to raise a child that isn't mine," he'd told her. Words that had echoed in his mind ever since. Tears streaming down her face, Mariah had whispered, "You don't believe me. I'm sorry." Then she disappeared. Stephen had looked, but not hard enough. He buried himself in ambition, building a name, a legacy, trying to forget. And now there was a little girl with Mariah's eyes, living in a house ready to collapse. Lucinda. It couldn't be a coincidence. It just couldn't. That night, Stephen sat alone in the library at the estate. A glass of red wine untouched on the table, his eyes fixed on an old photograph peeking out from a book's worn pages. A snapshot of Mariah in her 20s. Soft smile, long dark hair. "That girl? Is she mine?" he murmured. The door creaked. Evelyn entered, the housekeeper who had been with the family for decades. "Mr. Stephen, won't you join us for dinner?" "Evelyn? Do you remember Mariah?" She froze. "Miss Mariah? From back then?" Her voice wavered. Yes, I remember. Sweet girl, hard-working. One day she was just gone. I asked Mrs. Isabella and she told me Mariah had been let go. Stephen stared at her. "Do you think Mariah told the truth?" Evelyn's eyes dropped, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do. The day she left, her eyes were filled with pain." Stephen closed his eyes. "Help me, Evelyn. I have to find out what really happened." She nodded, steady now. "Of course, sir. I'll help however I can." He stood. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going back to that house." "What are you hoping to do?" "See Lucinda again." The next morning, Stephen sat at his desk on the 18th floor of Walker Group HQ. Sunlight streamed through the glass walls, but he felt none of its warmth. A cup of cold coffee sat in front of him, beside the property seizure paperwork. He pressed the intercom. Moments later, Andrew walked in, silver-haired in his 50s, polished as ever. He had stood beside Stephen for 2 decades. "What do you need, Mr. Walker?" Without looking up, Stephen said, "Get me everything. Records of every property we ever held in the South Bronx. And I want copies of all housing aid requests and rental applications from 2013 to 2015. Andrew furrowed his brow. "That's quite a bit. It could take days." "Make it hours," Stephen replied, his voice sharp. Andrew hesitated at the tone. Hard, commanding. "Yes, sir." Stephen gave a tight nod. "Also, get in touch with Detective Marcus Lee's office. Let him know I need to see him this afternoon." "A detective?" Andrew paused, uncertain. "Are you thinking of—" Stephen interrupted him sharply. "Just make the call, no questions. Got it?" Once Andrew was gone, Stephen turned his attention back to the glass wall of his office. The city stretched endlessly before him, headlights below blinking like fireflies on asphalt. But his thoughts had slipped 10 years backward, back to the unraveling. He had been younger then, driven, certain he could mold the world to fit his will. But Margaret Walker, his mother, had taught him otherwise. Power didn't lie in noble dreams. It lived in domination. "Stephen, don't be foolish. She's just the maid," she had said, her voice icy as they sat at the dinner table. Stephen had pushed back. "I love Mariah. And if she's pregnant, I'll take responsibility. Margaret had calmly set her teacup down, her expression unreadable. You think you're clever, that you know who that baby belongs to. You don't know a thing about honor or what it means to defend this family's reputation. His anger had flared. You have no right to control my private life. She had smiled, cruel and sure. I'm not controlling anything. I'm giving you the truth. The following morning, Miradvis had handed him an envelope. Inside was a DNA test result signed by Dr. Albert Dawson, their longtime family physician. It clearly stated Mariah's baby shared no DNA with Stephen Walker. Stephen had stared at the document in disbelief. "Mom, are you absolutely sure this is legit?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Of course, but if you doubt it, ask yourself, what does she really want? Love? Or what comes with the Walker name?" He'd taken the paper and left the room without another word. His mother had watched him go, satisfaction written all over her face. That night, he went to see Mariah. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed in the servants' quarters, one hand gently resting on her belly. Her face lit up when he walked in. "You came," she said, smiling warmly. He couldn't return the smile. "We need to talk." She nodded, until she noticed the paper in his hand. Her smile vanished. "What's that?" "A test, Mariah. The baby. It's not mine." Her face turned ghostly pale. "What are you talking about? It's from my mother's doctor. The results say I'm not the father." "I don't know anything about a test," she said, suddenly rising. "I never agreed to anything like that." Stephen stepped back. "So you're saying my mother lied?" "It's more than a lie. It's a setup, Stephen. A violation. You know me. I would never betray you, but..." He held up the paper. "The truth, at least on paper," pressing on him like a weight. "Do you want to believe that sheet of paper? Or me?" she asked, her voice cracking. He said nothing. His silence was its own answer. He turned around and walked out, never looking back. Within days, Mariah was gone. Later that week, Stephen drove to the old neighborhood where Lucinda lived. Charles, his driver, hesitated. "Sir, are you sure about this? It's not safe here." "Just stay in the car," Stephen replied coolly. The door to number 17 was still crooked on its hinges. This time, he didn't bother to knock. He pushed it open and stepped inside. The living room was empty. "Lucinda," he called. He heard fast footsteps from the kitchen. A girl came into view, wearing a shirt far too big, slipping off one shoulder. Her eyes widened. "It's you. You really came back." Stephen gave a slight nod. "Where's your mom?" Lucinda looked down. "She hasn't come back." "Have you eaten?" She shook her head. Stephen let out a breath, pulled out his wallet and handed her a few bills. "Here, get yourself something to eat." But Lucinda backed away, fear in her eyes. I can't." "Why not?" "Mr. Thomas said if I go out without his okay, he'll hurt me." "Thomas? Who is he?" "He's the man who's been staying here since Mum died." Stephen's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. "Lucinda, you don't have to be scared anymore. I won't let anyone hurt you." She lifted her face, her lips quivering. "Who are you?" Stephen crouched to her level, speaking gently. "A friend of your mother's." Lucinda blinked. "My mum used to say there was someone named Stephen, but he left." Stephen's voice faltered. "Yes, I did leave, but I came back." A sudden noise behind them made them both flinch. A grimy man, reeking of alcohol and wrapped in a shredded coat, stood in the doorway. Thomas squinted, looking from Stephen to Lucinda. "What the hell is this? Who the hell let you in my house?" Stephen rose calmly. "I'm the legal owner of this place. And you are?" "Legal owner?" Thomas scoffed. "I've been living here since Mariah passed. So who the hell are you?" He stepped in closer, breath heavy with booze. Lucinda shrank back, trembling. Stephen instinctively moved to shield her. Thomas sneered. "Get out of my way. This brat didn't even finish cleaning and now she's got company. You want another beating? Enough! Stephen barked. He yanked out his phone. I'm calling the police. Thomas lunged toward him, but Stephen sidestepped. The scuffle was rough in the tight quarters. One hard punch sent Thomas sprawling backward into an old table, his skull hitting the edge with a sickening thud. He crumpled, unconscious. Lucinda curled into a ball in the corner, covering her head with her arms. Stephen stood, chest heaving, eyes darting around the disordered room. He approached slowly. Lucinda, it's okay. I promise I won't hurt you. But she flinched harder, scooting deeper into the corner. Please don't come near me. I've been good. Stephen felt a crushing weight in his chest, like hands clenching around his throat. Everything he said, every movement he made, she expected pain to follow. Did he hit you? He asked, voice ragged. Lucinda didn't speak. She only glanced down at her wrist. In the dim light, faint old scars told him everything. Stephen turned away, eyes stinging. Every bruise, every scream, every tear. That little girl had endured it all because of the choice he made 10 years ago. The next morning, the New York sky hung low and grey, like the dust of a burned-out fire. Stephen Walker sat motionless in the sitting room of his grand home. A cup of coffee, untouched and cold, sat in front of him. What he felt wasn't fury. It wasn't sympathy. It was guilt. And it was heavy. Mr. Stephen? Evelyn, his longtime housekeeper, stepped in with a look of concern. Aren't you going to eat anything? He didn't raise his eyes. Not hungry. She lingered a moment, then gently said, Charles mentioned you went back to that old place yesterday. Everything okay? Stephen gave a dry nod. If knocking out a drunk bastard counts as okay, then sure. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh, Lord! Thomas? He's still there. Yeah, Stephen muttered, and he's been treating Lucinda like she's less than human. Evelyn's face tightened in anger. I'd heard whispers about him, but I didn't think it was that bad. Stephen finally looked up. Evelyn, do you remember Mariah ever talking about someone named Thomas? She paused, thinking. One time, she said there was a man in the neighborhood who offered to help her after she was thrown out of the estate, but she never trusted him. Always kept her distance. She didn't trust men, not after everything she'd been through. Stephen didn't say a word. Every sentence she spoke felt like a knife carving into his chest. Later that day, Stephen made his way back to house number 17, this time without calling ahead. The front door was still ajar, just like before. A stale, bone-chilling air hung heavy inside. Lucinda, he called, voice firm but full of concern. No reply. He stepped cautiously inside, heart thudding. The kitchen was deserted. The small bedroom in the back lay in shadows, its worn-out curtain flapping weakly in the breeze. Lucinda, a faint sound, whimper, came from under the table. Stephen dropped to his knees and spotted her there, curled up, shielding her head with her arms. Her face was marred with faded bruises. Lucinda, what happened? He asked, moving quickly toward her. Her eyes, wide and frightened, locked onto his. I didn't take anything, I just ate some bread, she stammered. No one said you did, he replied softly, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. But she flinched away. Don't hit me, I'll do the dishes, she whispered. Stephen's throat closed up. I'd never hurt you, I swear. She blinked, searching his face. Really? He nodded, eyes burning. Really? I'm here to get you out of here. Fear flushed across her face. I can't. Mr. Thomas will kill me. Where is he now? He went drinking, but he always comes back before midnight. Stephen thought for a moment, then stood. Do you have anything you want to take with you? Lucinda hesitated, then scrambled to the bed and pulled out an old wooden box. Just this. Can I take a look? She opened it slowly. Inside was a handkerchief with the words, To Lucinda with all my love, Mum, stitched across it. and a photo, Mariah as a young woman holding baby Lucinda in her arms. Stephen's hands began to shake as he stared at the photo. Every last doubt was gone. "You hold on to that," he murmured. "We're getting you somewhere safe." Lucinda bit her lip. "I'm scared." He wrapped his arms around her carefully. "You don't have to be scared anymore, I promise." Suddenly, loud banging exploded from outside. "Lucinda! Open this damn door, you little—" Stephen quickly guided her toward the back. "Lock the door. Stay there until I come get you." Tears welled up in Lucinda's eyes, but she nodded and slipped away. Stephen turned and opened the front door. Thomas stood there, face red, eyes glazed with booze. "You again?" he slurred. "Where's that little brat? Hiding from me?" "She'll never take another beating from you," Stephen said firmly. Thomas laughed, bitter and mean. "Who the hell do you think you are, some kind of savior?" Stephen pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police. Stay if you want to get hauled off. You piece of— That kid's mine! I raised her for 4 goddamn years." Stephen's jaw tightened. "You didn't raise her, you terrorized her." Thomas lunged, but Stephen threw a punch that knocked him straight down the porch steps. Without hesitation, Stephen went back inside, grabbed Lucinda's shaking hand and led her away from that nightmare. In the car, Lucinda sat quietly in the back seat next to Evelyn, the housekeeper Stephen had called for extra support. "Would you like something to eat, Lucinda?" Ivan asked kindly. Lucinda shook her head. "I don't really know how to eat good food." "Well, how about some warm milk?" Ivan offered gently. Lucinda hesitated. "Can I?" "Of course you can. You can have whatever you like." Stephen kept his eyes on the road, silent, but inside every word Lucinda spoke felt like rubbing salt into a fresh wound. A little girl just 9 years old, too scared to eat, too scared to speak, too unsure of what kindness even felt like. All because of a series of wrong turns that started with him. When the car pulled up to the estate, Lucinda hesitated at the tall wrought-iron gates. She stared up at the imposing mansion, awe flickering in her eyes. I really get to go in?" Stephen gave a gentle nod. "This is your home, Lucinda." She squeezed his hand tight. "My home?" "Yes." Lucinda didn't say anything else. Quietly, she walked beside Stephen and Evelyn through the grand entrance. That night, Stephen sat alone in the study, a photo of young Mariah in his hands, the same one Lucinda kept hidden in her wooden box. Evelyn entered softly. "Lucinda's asleep," she said. "She's holding the handkerchief and the picture close." Stephen nodded. "Thank you, Evelyn. She needs time, but I believe if you truly love her, things will get better." Stephen lifted his gaze. "I don't know if I deserve to be called a father." "You do," Evelyn replied with steady conviction. "If you're ready to own up to what happened. Don't keep running from it, Stephen." He let out a long breath and gave a small nod. "Tomorrow morning, I'll talk to my mother." The next morning, a soft mist hung over New York, rain falling lightly against the bright stone of the Walker estate. Stephen waited in front of the dining room, stiff and still. The old clock on the wall struck 8, just as Margaret Walker, the family matriarch, and its most formidable presence, made her way down the staircase. "Mother," he said, his voice level but cool. She eyed him, sharp as ever. "Why are you sitting there like a statue? What's going on?" Stephen stood and met her gaze directly. "We need to talk." She waved a hand dismissively. "Make it fast. I've got a 9 o'clock with the Austrian ambassador." "Then I'll be blunt," he replied. "What did you do to Mariah?" The room seemed to freeze. Isabella's expression darkened. "Mariah who?" "Don't play games," Stephen said. "Mariah, the maid you hired a decade ago. The woman you tried to erase from my life." Margaret let out a low chuckle. "You still remember that girl? There are plenty of women in the world, Stephen. Why dwell on a useless maid?" His jaw clenched. "I'm not asking you to rate her worth. I'm asking what you did." She leaned back. utterly unbothered. I did what was necessary to protect our name. A maid's bastard carrying the Walker bloodline, how would that look to anyone? Stephen's hand slammed down on the table. You rigged the DNA results. She didn't even flinch. So what? That doctor works for me. One altered digit and it all went away. She was pregnant with my child. You knew it. Of course I knew, she said smoothly. I knew from the start, but you didn't have the backbone to stand up to me, so you followed orders. And now what? You're here looking for someone to blame. Stephen went quiet. Every word she spoke felt like a blade. You ruined a life, he whispered. All to protect a fake idea of dignity. Don't come to me with your high-minded speeches, Stephen. I spent 30 years turning Walker Group into a powerhouse. You think that happens by playing fair? He no longer recognized the woman who used to sit by his sickbed. All he could see now was a stranger. That girl. She's my daughter, he said, voice breaking. And for the first time, Margaret seemed to waver. She's alive, she asked softly. She is. And her name is Lucinda. The name her mother gave her. The room fell into silence. Margaret leaned back again, slower this time. So Mariah didn't go through with the abortion like I thought? No, Stephen said, she didn't. She raised that child by herself with nothing, while you sat here in luxury building your empire. Do you feel proud? Isabella's words hung in the air. She didn't expect a reply, and Stephen didn't offer one. After a pause, she added with a scoff, that child's only going to weigh you down. Stephen's voice was quiet but firm. No, she's a blessing I never earned. And now, I'll guard her with everything you try to tear apart. He turned to walk away. She'll never be welcomed in this family, Margaret said coldly behind him. Stephen stopped, shoulders tensing, but he didn't turn around. Then, I don't consider you part of my heart anymore, he said, and walked out of the house he once thought was home. That night, Stephen sat quietly next to Lucindine in a small room he'd set up for her on the 3rd floor. A soft, warm nightlight cast a golden hue across the walls. The white lace curtains danced lightly with the breeze. The walls were painted a soft pink. Teddy bears were tucked into corners, and an empty bookshelf stood waiting for stories. Lucinda had curled up, arms around her knees, the wooden box held tight in her hands. She glanced up at him and asked in a timid voice, "Are you mad at me for living there?" "No," Stephen replied, shaking his head. "I'm only angry at myself." Lucinda looked down. "I used to think, if I'd been better, maybe my mum wouldn't have died." Stephen's heart sank. "Lucinda, no. It wasn't your fault." He leaned in, voice steady. "Your mom died because someone terrible was chasing her. You weren't the reason." But Lucinda kept shaking her head. "She told me to run. I ran as fast as I could. When I got back, she was lying there, not moving. I kept pretending she was still alive, just working late." Her voice cracked as tears started to fall. "But the truth is, she's not coming back." Stephen pulled her into his arms. "I'm here now. You don't have to carry that memory anymore." Through her sobs, Lucinda asked, "Did you know my mum?" He nodded. "A long time ago. I loved your mum more than anything." "Then why didn't you stay with her?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Stephen struggled for words. After a long silence, he said, "Because I was a fool. I was scared. I trusted the wrong people instead of trusting her, and I wasn't there when she needed me most." Lucinda looked up, eyes glistening. "She never said anything bad about you. She said you were a good man, just that you didn't know I was born." Tears welled in Stephen's eyes. "Now I know, and I promise. I'm not leaving again." Lucinda hesitated. "So, I can live here? For good?" "Yes," he said, without hesitation. "No one's gonna hit me?" No. No dishes. No scrubbing floors, he assured her. Lucinda lowered her gaze. I don't know how to be a regular kid. Stephen hugged her tighter. Then I'll show you. From the beginning. Like how a dad teaches his daughter, she whispered. I don't remember what my dad looked like, she added softly. Stephen didn't say anything. He simply held her hand, still, gently, until Lucinda fell asleep for the first time in years, unafraid, safe in his arms. The following morning, Stephen stepped into the downtown office of David Brooks, the man who'd been his attorney and confidant for over 2 decades. This won't be easy, Stephen, David said as he adjusted his glasses. If you want custody of Lucinda, we're going to have to prove that Thomas is completely unfit. Then let's get started, Stephen replied without hesitation. David gave a small, cautious smile. Hang on. Are you really sure you want to go down this path? If this gets public, your mother's going to be dragged into the mess. Stephen nodded firmly. Yes, she needs to be held responsible. Mariah is dead. Lucinda almost died because of her. And you know the media. They'll dig up everything from the past. Let them, Stephen said. The more people who find out the truth, the better. David nodded. All right. Then we'll need solid proof. I'll assign someone to look into Mariah's accident, dig through old case files, and review Thomas's legal history. I heard he has a record. He does. I saw a scar on his wrist. Looks like the kind you get from police restraints. Perfect. This won't take long, David sighed. Stephen's hands balled into fists. I just want one thing. That Lucinda never sets foot in that house again. As your legally recognized daughter, we'll make sure that never happens. Stephen nodded. I also want a new DNA test, one that's actually trustworthy. David smiled slightly. Welcome to a legal nightmare, but don't worry. I'm with you all the way. The very next day, Stephen stormed into the drawing room of Margaret Walker's grand estate, fury simmering just below the surface. Sunlight spilled through the frosted glass windows, lighting up the antique furniture around him. But to Stephen, the place felt like a cold mausoleum, polished and lifeless, hiding years of ugliness beneath the shine. Margaret sat perched on a red velvet chaise, sipping Earl Grey tea and flipping through the morning paper. When she saw her son enter, she didn't bother to hide her annoyance. "What are you doing back?" she asked, voice sharp. Stephen didn't take a seat. He stood his ground, his eyes locked on hers. "You're going to face everything you've done." "You're threatening me now?" Margaret scoffed, casually placing her cup down. "Good, go ahead." "Anything else?" "I've spoken to attorney Arturo. We've opened an official investigation. You'd better be ready to testify if it comes to that." A disgraceful son turning on his own mother, all to protect a bastard child, she sneered. "Lucinda is not a bastard. She is your granddaughter. She is my daughter. She carries the Walker blood." "Oh, she does not!" Margaret snapped, for once losing her composed exterior. "She is the result of a disgraceful affair between a corporate heir and a maid who didn't know her place." Stephen's fists clenched. "You were once just the daughter of a fabric merchant from Valencia. If Grandpa hadn't married you, would you still be sitting here talking about bloodlines and pride?" "I rose by my own merit," she shot back. "No. You climbed by stepping on people. Your whole life you've obsessed over appearances, pushed people until they broke and called it their fault." Margaret stood, her eyes blazing. "You don't understand anything. If you had married Mariah back then, the whole financial world would have mocked us. You would have lost everything. I saved you." "No," Stephen said, his voice low but cutting. "You killed the part of me that was human." Margaret paused. Her expression hardened. Then she let out a chilling laugh. "I knew you'd come back one day to blame me, but I don't regret it. And I won't apologize. If I could do it over again, I would." Stephen gave a quiet nod. Then you better get used to growing old alone, she snapped, because I won't be forgiving you. Her lips curled into a cold smirk. You really believe that scrappy girl from the streets can fill the void your mother left? Stephen took a step forward. She's not a replacement, he said firmly. She's what you cost me, and this time I'm not letting her go. Upstairs in the Grand Mansion's second-floor library, Lucinda sat in a small chair, looking small against the towering bookshelves. She wore a soft blue wool dress that Evelyn had picked out just for her. Her eyes wandered around the lavish room, still unsure, still distant. Evelyn gently placed a mug of warm milk on the table in front of her. Drink up, sweetheart. It'll help you warm up. Lucinda shook her head. I'm not used to having so much food. Evelyn offered her a kind smile. Then it's time you got used to it. You won't go hungry ever again. Lucinda glanced up at her. Miss Evelyn? Why is Mr. Stephen being so nice to me? Evelyn looked at the child for a long, quiet moment. Then her voice dropped to a soft whisper. Because you mean everything to him now. I used to have a mum, Lucinda said quietly, lowering her gaze. She used to sing to me at bedtime. She told me stories about someone named Stephen, someone kind who went away. And now he's come back, Evelyn said, her voice warm as she placed a reassuring hand on Lucinda's shoulder. The world can be a harsh place, but sometimes it gives us back the people we've lost. The library door creaked open. Stephen stepped in, tension still written across his face from the argument earlier. Lucienne looked at him, voice barely above a whisper. Did I do something wrong? He stopped in his tracks, then slowly shook his head. No, you didn't do anything wrong. He gave a tired smile. I just need to rest a little. Lucinda studied him with the careful attention only a child could give. Were you crying? Stephen gave a half laugh. Guess I'm not so good at hiding it, huh? She shook her head solemnly. Your eyes are red, like a bunny's. And for the first time since reconnecting with her, Stephen laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was real, Evelyn noticed, and quietly slipped out of the room, leaving them alone. Lucinda, Stephen said as they sat side by side, have you ever thought about living somewhere new, a place with school, friends, a regular kind of life? She went quiet, thinking. I don't really know what regular is. Stephen nodded and reached out, gently taking her hand. Then let's figure it out together. I won't have to leave. No, this is your home if you want it. Lucinda bit her bottom lip. Then, can I call you Dad? Stephen froze. Silence hung in the room for a moment. Then he squeezed her hand, voice low and steady. If you want to. It would make me very happy. She nodded. I'll have to practice. I've never called anyone that before. Stephen's smile trembled with emotion, but it was full of hope. I'll wait. That same afternoon, across town, in a sleek office lined with polished wood and legal books, a heavy conversation took place. Stephen David sat across from Detective Marcus Lee inside the office of attorney David Brooks. Marcus, a compact man with a crown of silver hair and sharp, calculating eyes, placed a thick stack of papers onto the table. This is the initial report I managed to dig up. Tomas has a record. 3 past convictions, 1 for theft, another for assault, and a third for skipping out on bail. 2 years back, he allegedly beat his girlfriend so badly she ended up in the hospital, but the case mysteriously disappeared. David gave a tight nod. If this ever sees the light of day, it'll be more than enough to keep him from ever getting custody. I don't want a drawn-out court war, Stephen said firmly. I just want Lucinda safe right now. Marcus shot him a look. You better tread carefully. He's not the type to roll over. If he senses an arrest coming, he'll come out swinging. If he lays a hand on Lucinda again, I'm not leaving it to the courts, Stephen answered coolly. Arturo's expression darkened. "You need to keep your head. Everything has to go through the proper legal process," Marcus chimed in. "I'll keep tabs on him. But Stephen, you have to be ready. Lucinda needs more than just legal protection. She needs emotional support too. I'd suggest lining up a child psychologist." "I already did," Stephen replied. "She'll have every resource she needs." David got to his feet. "We're going to win this, but you've got to stay strong. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're doing this for your daughter." Stephen looked at both men. His eyes, once clouded with worry, now burned with resolve. "Then let's get started." The sky over Manhattan hung heavy with grey clouds. Outside, a sleek private clinic on Fifth Avenue, Stephen Walker stood still. The three-story structure of glass and steel shimmered in the city haze, but Stephen barely noticed. He wasn't here to admire architecture, he was here for answers. "Mr. Walker?" a calm female voice called from the reception area. "I'm Dr. Susan Harper. I specialize in DNA testing. David filled me in." Stephen shook her hand. "Thanks for pulling this together so quickly." "No problem at all," she said warmly. "We've got a room ready. Has the little girl, has she arrived?" "She's in the car. She doesn't like crowds," he said. "We've got a private entrance in the back if that's easier," Dr. Susan offered. Stephen gave a nod. The quieter, the better. A few minutes later, Lucinda stepped in with Evelyn by her side. She wore a soft, fur-lined jacket and looked visibly anxious. Susan crouched to her level and offered a kind smile. "Hi, Lucinda. I'm a doctor. I'm just going to take a little bit of saliva, and I promise it won't hurt." Lucinda squeezed Evelyn's hand tightly. "What do I have to do?" "Just open your mouth a tiny bit, and I'll use this to gently swab the inside of your cheek." Stephen knelt beside her. "You don't have to be scared. I'm right here." Lucinda met his eyes, hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. "I'll try." Once the sample was taken, Susan made careful notes. "We'll need about 48 hours for the results, but I can guarantee the test is completely reliable." Stephen rose to his feet. "This time, it has to be the truth." Susan gave him a look filled with cautious compassion. "I know what happened before, and I'm truly sorry you had to endure that." Stephen responded with a faint smile. "As long as this result is real, I don't need anything else." 2 days later, Stephen was in his home office, a thick folder laid out in front of him. Susan Harper stepped inside, holding a sealed envelope. "I triple-checked everything myself," she said, setting the file down gently. "There's no more uncertainty." Stephen opened the envelope. Bold letters at the top of the page read, "Probability of paternity 99.999%. Lucinda was his daughter." His hands began to shake slightly, but his lips stayed sealed. No words came out. Susan watched him for a moment before quietly adding, "Sometimes the truth comes late, but it still comes." Stephen gave a nod. "Thank you, Dr. Harper." Susan exited, leaving him alone in the hushed stillness of the room. Later that evening, in a modest dining room, Stephen placed dinner on the table. Chicken soup and toasted bread. Lucien walked in, still a little unsure in the unfamiliar setting. "Do you like soup?" he asked. She gave a tiny nod. "As long as it's not spicy." Stephen let out a chuckle. "I tried it. No heat, I promise." They sat down together. A minute passed before Lucinda spoke up, carefully. "Are you busy?" "No," he said. "Did you want to talk about something?" Lucinda nodded. "I heard Aunt Evelyn say, 'You're suing that man.'" "Yes," Stephen answered. "His name is Thomas, and I'm making sure he never comes near you again." Lucinda dropped her gaze. "He's going to be really mad." Stephen leaned forward, voice steady. "You don't have to worry about him anymore. You've got me now. You've got a lawyer. You've got a doctor. Nobody is allowed to hurt you again." Lucinda looked up, uncertainty in her eyes. So, if one day you stop liking me, where would I go? Stephen felt a lump rise in his throat. Listen closely, Lucinda. That's never going to happen. I already lost you once. I'm not letting that happen again. She pressed her lips together. I'm still getting used to calling you Dad. That's okay, he said. Take your time. Lucinda had a small smile. Maybe I'll try. Stephen's eyes blurred slightly. I'll be right here. The next morning at Arturo's law office, the atmosphere was thick with tension. David flipped open a case file. We're moving forward on the lawsuit for child abuse, unlawful guardianship and prior offences. The petition to revoke Thomas's custody is already with the court. Stephen nodded. When will the judge look at it? Next week, David replied. But there's something else. He slid a document across the table. The media's caught wind of it. A New York Times reporter is digging into the story. Walker Eyre reunites with his daughter. If this breaks, it's going to blow up. Stephen paused. Then he said calmly, let them publish it. David raised a brow. You sure? Yes. If going public helps keep Lucinda safe, I don't care who finds out. I've got nothing left to hide. David gave a resigned shrug. Then I'll get a press release drafted. David stood. And I'm going to face Thomas myself. David gave him a warning glance. Be careful. That man's got nothing left to lose. Exactly, Stephen said. Which is why I need to look him in the eye and tell him it's over. Thomas's apartment was in a worn-down building in the South Bronx. Elevator busted, halls reeking of smoke and mildew. Stephen knocked on the door 3 times. No answer. On the 4th knock, the door creaked open. Thomas stood there, disheveled, bleary-eyed, and reeking of whiskey. What the hell are you doing here? He barked. Stephen didn't back down. I came to let you know you're about to be arrested. Thomas let out a bitter laugh. Lawyers. You think some paperwork's going to take that girl from me? Lucinda isn't yours. You have no right to raise her. I'm her biological father. Thomas's face twisted in disbelief. So, you came crawling back for your bastard kid? Or for that damn woman? Stephen's jaw tightened. Don't you dare talk about Mariah like that. She ran off like a damn mutt when I asked for money, Thomas snapped. If she hadn't died, I wouldn't be stuck raising that brat. You didn't raise her, Stephen said through clenched teeth. You hurt her. Thomas stepped in closer, breath sour. Think I'm scared of you? Without blinking, Stephen reached into his coat, pulled out a copy of the lawsuit and shoved it against Thomas's chest. You'll get the official notice soon. From here on, it's in the court's hands. Thomas glanced at the papers, his face going dark. You want no war? Stephen turned without hesitation. I don't wage war on vermin, he said, his voice ice cold. I exterminate them. Upstairs, in a quiet 3rd-floor room, Lucinda sat by the window, her eyes locked on the cold, colourless sky. Her small fingers barely held the lace curtain, so gentle it seemed like even the fabric might slip through. The room was warm, clean, and smelled faintly of wood and fresh sheets, but inside her it was still dark, still full of shouts, slamming doors, and Thomas's bloodshot stare. Stephen entered silently and closed the door behind him. Lucinda, he said softly. The girl didn't turn her head. You want something to eat? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lucinda gave a slight shake of her head. I'm not hungry. He stepped closer and sat beside her. You haven't eaten since this morning, E. I don't want to eat. He paused, letting the quiet settle between them. Then he asked, How was school today? Lucinda's hands tightened in her lap. Some girls said my dress was pretty, but I didn't know what to say. You could say, thank you. Lucinda bit her lip. I'm scared if I say the wrong thing, people hate me. Stephen lowered his gaze. He didn't have to be afraid of anyone. She was silent for a moment. Then she turned to him, her eyes hesitant but searching. "Do you hate me?" she asked. Stephen froze. Why would you ask that? Lucinda looked down. "You're rich, and I'm just some dirty girl. That's what they used to call me." He gently took her hand in his. "Lucinda, you are the most incredible person I've ever met. Not because you're my daughter, but because you've survived all that, and you're still here." Lucinda didn't respond. She turned back to the window. A single tear slipped down her cheek, falling silently onto the pillow. That night, Evelyn walked into Stephen's study, finding him alone in the library, lost in thought. "She skipped another meal?" Evelyn asked, her voice low and weighted. Stephen gave a quiet nod. "She keeps saying she's not hungry, but I can tell. It's fear." "Fear of what?" Evelyn settled into the chair across from him. "Fear of getting yelled at, of being hit, of being thrown away. She thinks any sign of weakness is a trigger for punishment." Evelyn let out a slow breath. "I've worked with abused kids before, but Lucinda, she's different. She's so quiet it's unsettling," Stephen admitted. "It's like she's locked herself inside. Every time I get near her, she recoils." Evelyn thought for a moment. "Do you know why?" "Because I'm a man," he said bitterly, "and every man in her life has done her harm." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Finally, Evelyn stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. "But you're not like them, Stephen. You stayed. That alone will start to make a difference." The following day, Stephen brought Lucinda to meet Dr. Karen Blake, a child psychologist whose practice was inside a cozy white cottage at the end of Lexington Avenue. The waiting room was cheerful, filled with colorful drawings and shelves of plush toys. Lucinda curled up in the corner of the couch, completely silent. Stephen and Paula kept their distance, giving her space. "She's emotionally shut down," Paula observed quietly. "It's common with children who suffered abuse, especially from someone they should have been able to trust." "How long does it take for a child like that to open up again?" Stephen asked. "There's no fixed answer," Paula replied, "but there's one thing that always matters most. Don't leave." Stephen turned to watch Lucidamus. She slowly scribbled in a coloring book. "I left her mother once. That's not a mistake I'll make again." Paula gave a soft nod. "That's where the healing begins. The rest takes time." Later that night, when the house had quieted and everyone was preparing for bed, Stephen heard a faint sound just outside his room. He opened the door and found Lucinda standing there, small and shaking, her eyes filled with tears. "Lucinda, what is it?" he asked gently. She bit her lip. I can't sleep." He stepped into the hallway and knelt down to her level. "Did you have a nightmare?" Lucinda have a timid nod. "I dreamed about Thomas. He grabbed me, and Mum was there, but she couldn't hear me screaming." Stephen opened his arms, slow and calm. "Do you want to stay in here with me tonight?" Lucinda hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. They walked into the room together. Stephen added an extra pillow near the side of the bed where she could lie down. He didn't reach for her, didn't touch, just stayed close by. The warm glow of the bedside lamp casting soft light over the space. "Are you scared?" he asked. "I'm not scared of you," she murmured. "I'm just scared of the dream," he nodded. "I'll stay right here until you fall asleep." There was a pause before Lucinda whispered, "If I forget what my mum looks like one day, will you tell me about her?" Stephen's throat tightened. "I will," he said softly. "I'll tell you stories about her until every detail comes back to you." Lucinda finally closed her eyes. A few minutes later, the only sound left in the room was her slow, steady breathing, peaceful and for once untouched by fear. The following morning, at the New York County Courthouse, Stephen and his attorney, Arcuro, stepped into a private conference room. Laid out before them were stacks of documents, medical reports, witness accounts, DNA analyses, and Detective Annonay's case file. Across the table sat Thomas, slumped over with his head bowed, wrists cuffed. The fire in his demeanor was gone. Beside him, a young public defender looked worn down. The judge turned towards Stephen. "Mr. Stephen Walker, would you like to speak before the formal hearing begins?" Stephen stood, voice steady and resolute. "I'm not here seeking recognition. I'm here for what's right. No child should endure that kind of pain, especially not one left all alone in the world. She has someone now. She has me." The judge gave a nod. "Statement recorded. The hearing is set for next week." Thomas scoffed under his breath. "You rich people think cash can fix everything." Stephen glanced back, his stare sharp. "It's not the money. It's the truth you can't handle." Thomas fell silent. Outside the room, Stephen took a long breath. David gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "We're almost there. Now we just wait for the trial," Stephen replied. "I just want Lucindato to feel safe again." "She will," David said with a smile. "Thanks to you, she's finally stepping into the light." A week had passed since Stephen left the courthouse with the thick legal file in hand. Spring was unfolding across New York. Gentle sunlight painted the sky, and the lingering chill had begun to lift. But the real warmth Stephen felt didn't come from the season. It came from the tiny figure seated in the back of his car, a little girl with clear, trusting eyes, and a name she could finally call her own: Lucinda Walker. "Are you cold?" Stephen asked, adjusting the air conditioner. Lucinda, dressed in a crisp white knit dress and clutching a plush bunny Evelyn had chosen, shook her head. "Nope, today feels really nice." Stephen smiled at her in the rearview mirror. "Do you know where we're headed?" "To a doctor, but not like before, right?" "Right," he nodded. "This one's different. Her name's Dr. Sophia, and she's going to do a full checkup. She's kind and careful. She won't miss a thing." Lucinda's face tensed slightly. "Like the hospital where they stuck needles in my arm?" Stephen reached back and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "Not like that. You get to say no this time. I'll be with you the whole way." She glanced up and offered a tiny smile. "I just learned how to say it. Dad." The word was barely a whisper, but it hit Stephen like thunder. His breath caught. Mercy General Private Hospital, nestled in the upscale Upper East Side, was known for catering to New York's wealthiest. But Stephen hadn't chosen it for appearances. He picked it because he wanted the best care possible for Lucinda. As they entered, the receptionist greeted them with a polite nod. "Good morning, Mr. Walker. Your room is all set." Lucinda squeezed Stephen's hand tighter. "Dad, it's crowded." He leaned down and murmured, "You're safe. I'm right here." In the exam room, Dr. Amy Foster, a woman in her 40s with wireframe glasses and a soothing tone, knelt to meet Lucinda's eyes. "Hey there, princess. I'm Dr. Sophia. I just want to check on that brave little heart of yours today. No shots, no pain." Lucinda's lips curled into a faint smile. "So I don't need to cry?" "Not at all. But if you ever get nervous, just hold your dad's hand, okay?" The checkup took more than an hour. Heart monitors, x-rays, blood work, and a stomach check. Stephen stayed close the whole time. At first, Lucinda was anxious, but gradually she started to relax in the comfort of his presence. When the exams wrapped up, Dr. Amy Foster asked Stephen to step into a private office. "Mr. Walker," she began, flipping open the file, "Lucinda has mild anemia, signs of prolonged malnutrition, and a few scars around her wrists and ankles. Some are older, some more recent, but thankfully no internal damage." Stephen exhaled in relief. "So, with the right care, she'll be okay." "Absolutely," but I'm more concerned about her emotional well-being. She's seeing Dr. Karen Blake. It's a slow journey, but there's movement. Amy Foster gave a small nod. Good, then thank you. Stephen looked surprised. For what? For being one of the few powerful men who knows how to admit his mistakes and fix them. He didn't reply, just nodded slightly. On their way home, Stephen pulled into a children's boutique. Lucinda stared at the bright glass storefront, a little overwhelmed. I've never been to a place like this. Well, today's a good day to start. Inside, a friendly store assistant named Jessica approached, offering a polite smile. Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. How may I help you? My daughter needs some new clothes. Let her pick whatever she likes. No pressure. Jessica bent down to Lucinda's level. What's your name, sweet girl? Lucinda, head slightly behind Stephen. I don't know what to choose. Stephen knelt beside her, meeting her gaze. Today you get to pick whatever color or style you like. It's your choice, for the first time. Lucinda hesitated, scanning the racks until her eyes landed on a soft pink dress with a little bunny on the front. I want to try that one. Miss Jessica? Right away, sir. Lucinda stepped into the fitting room and a few minutes later emerged in the dress, which fit her like it was made for her. Her expression glowed. There was a fragile but real confidence that hadn't been there before. Stephen smiled. You look beautiful. Lucinda's cheeks flushed. Are you serious? I am. She's like your mother used to. Lucinda gripped his hand. My mum, she wore pink too. Yes, and she once said if she had a daughter, she'd teach her how to choose for herself. No one should ever choose for her. Lucinda nodded slowly. I'll remember that. That night, Lucinda sat on her bed watching the city lights twinkle outside. Stephen entered with a small box in his hands. I have something I want to give you. Inside the box was a delicate white silk dress, carefully folded. On the collar, the name Mariah Walker was embroidered. This belonged to Mum. Stephen nodded. She packed it in her suitcase before she left. I've kept it safe ever since. Luciane clutched the dress to her chest, her eyes shining. Can I wear it on a really special day? Stephen smoothed her hair. The day you officially become a walker. That day is coming soon. Luciane rested her head on his shoulder. Dad, yeah? If Mum could see me now, would she be proud? Stephen pulled her into a warm hug. She'd say, Lucinda has become the most beautiful thing I ever dreamed of. Lucinda closed her eyes and whispered, Then tonight is the first dream I'll have without a nightmare. Stephen whispered back, Sleep now, my little princess. The morning of the trial arrived with a soft glow over New York, as if the city had forgotten what storms were. Stephen wore a navy blue suit, not to impress, but because today he wasn't a businessman. He was a father, standing before the court to fight for the little girl he once lost. Lucinda came down the stairs in a plain white dress, her hair neatly tied, a flicker of nervousness in her eyes. She looked up and asked softly, Dad, do I have to talk in court? Stephen crouched down to her level. No, honey. There's just one thing I need from you today. What is it? Just stay close to me. That's all I need. Evelyn gently tucked a strand of hair behind Lucinda's ear. You look like a little angel, Lucinda. Lucinda have a small smile. I kind of feel like one. Stephen pulled something from his coat pocket, a delicate silver chain with a snowflake charm. This, he said. Your mum gave it to me a long time ago. I want you to have it now. Lucinda's eyes lit up. My mum used to wear that. She never took it off while we were together, Stephen said, his voice tinged with memory. Lucinda reached out, her fingers slightly shaking. Can I wear it? He fastened the necklace around her neck, the charm catching the sunlight. Lucinda touched it gently. It feels so warm. Stephen wrapped his arms around her. That's because she's always with you. Outside New York Family Court, the entrance was crowded. Reporters jostled for space, their cameras aimed at a row of expensive cars. Stephen stepped out, shielding Lucinda from the flashes. Beside him walked Arturo, his attorney. Calm, focused, with a quiet intensity in his eyes. Then came Thomas, arriving in the back of a squad car, wrists cuffed, escorted by 2 officers. Disheveled and unshaven, he looked like a man backed into a corner. He spotted Lucinda and yelled, "Lucinda! Don't listen to them! I raised you for 4 years!" Lucinda instinctively moved closer to Stephen, her face drained of color. David leaned in. "Don't worry, security's tight. He's not getting near her." Stephen's jaw tensed. "If he says one more..." "Don't," David cut in. "She needs a dad right now, not a man out for payback." Inside the courtroom, the tension was thick. Judge Richard Cole called the room to order, his gavel echoing off the walls. "This is a custody hearing. The plaintiff is Stephen Walker, the child's biological father. The defendant, Thomas Frank, has no biological relation and faces allegations of child abuse." The clerk read out, "Lucinda Walker." Stephen gently squeezed her hand. "You doing okay?" She gave a small nod. "I want to stay right here with you." David stood, voice calm and deliberate. "Your Honor, we present key evidence. A DNA test proving Stephen Walker is Lucinda's biological father, medical records consistent with abuse, and testimony from House staff member Evelyn Martinez." Evelyn walked to the stand, her eyes locked on Thomas, cold and steady. He saw Lucinda once hugging her knees, unable to even raise her face. She shook whenever a man walked by. When I asked her what was wrong, she whispered, "I can't eat until I finish cleaning the floor." Thomas's lawyer rose. "Your Honor, my client applied normal discipline. There's no direct proof of abuse." David handed over a file, inside photos of bruises and welts, along with detailed notes from Dr. Karen indicating signs of trauma and PTSD. The judge's expression darkened. "Mr. Miller, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Thomas jumped to his feet, shouting, "I gave her food. I gave her a roof over her head. Without me, that brat would have starved." Stephen leaned closer to Lucinda. "It's okay, sweetheart. He can't hurt you anymore." Lucinda looked up at him, her eyes calm. She wasn't scared anymore, only steady. The judge slammed his gavel. "This court finds that Mr. Miller is to lose all custodial rights. Lucinda Walker is hereby declared the legal daughter of Stephen Walker. The defendant will be prosecuted for child abuse." Thomas yelled, "You ruined my life, hypocrites!" Stephen didn't flinch. He stayed in place, standing firmly in front of Lucinda's. Security hauled Thomas away. Lucinda leaned in and whispered, "Dad?" And he gently replied, "Yes, sweetheart." "I feel relieved." Stephen smiled as he bent toward her. "Because from now on, no one's going to hurt you ever again." Lucinda gave a small nod. "You were right." On the ride back, their car slowly cruised through the shimmering lights of downtown Manhattan. Lucinda quirked beside him, clinging to a teddy bear. After a long silence, she finally said, "There's something I've wanted to say for a while, but I was too scared." "What is it, my little princess?" Stephen asked. Lucinda turned her head, her eyes shining. "Mum said, you were a good man." I didn't believe her. "I thought, if you were good, why didn't you come sooner?" Stephen stiffened. "I know, and I'm sorry." Lucinda reached out, gently placing her hand over his. "But now I believe her. Mum was right." Stephen couldn't find the words. His grip tightened on her hand, his throat thick with emotion. "Dad," she said. "Yes," he answered. Lucinda Slow opened her hand, revealing the silver necklace inside. "I'll wear this forever." Stephen's voice shook. "It's yours, just like I'm yours." Lucinda smiled. "Hi, Dad." Stephen's eyes welled up. "Hi." daughter. The city light streamed past the car windows, but inside the car time seemed to pause. In that moment, the world outside faded away, leaving just the two of them, mending what was broken. A father rediscovering his purpose, and a daughter finally finding where she belonged. This story reminds us of what's lost when we stay silent or back down in the face of injustice. Stephen once let love slip through his fingers because of pride and pressure from others. But this time, he chose differently. He stepped up. Being a father isn't about biology. It's about showing up, about standing guard no matter what. Every child deserves love, not pain. Justice doesn't always arrive on time, but where there is genuine love, there's always a path back to healing. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. Your support inspires us to keep bringing you heartfelt stories nearly every day. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.